This mother installed a covert camera to see why her infant was acting strangely. One of the hardest things a parent has to do is leave their child in the care of a complete stranger. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Just ask Whitney Matney and her Springdale, Arkansas husband, Chris. They were forced to entrust their 11-month-old daughter, Rayleigh, to a babysitter. However, when the infant started acting strangely, the parents decided to look into it more, and what they saw shocked them to no end. Everyone is aware of how mischievous kids can be, especially in their early years. However, Rayleigh, Whitney, and Chris Matney's 11-month-old daughter began exhibiting really odd behavior. Matney couldn't resist speculating about every circumstance that may have led to her baby's extreme distress, assuring herself, "I'm just being a crazy first-time mom." Sadly, though, she was gravely incorrect. When the Matneys first brought their daughter home from the hospital, they were ecstatic. She was vibrant, healthy, and most of all, content. She did, however, require a lot of her parents' time, as do most kids, and this was a problem that would send their daughter down a dangerous path. Initially, the pair didn't mind waking up at strange hours of the night to change, feed, and burp the infant. However, the Matneys had other obligations, which made keeping an eye on Rayleigh extremely difficult, particularly for Rayleigh's mother, who was enrolled in law school. Matney had to go through countless books, papers, and cases because she was a law student. To pass the bar test, she needed to devote all of her attention to her study. However, she was now a mother, and her spouse was only able to provide little assistance. How would she respond to this? Rayleigh was a handful who would become 1 year old in just 1 month. However, Matney was overburdened with responsibilities, and her spouse was also quite busy. Thus, the two of them decided on a course of action that would have disastrous effects on their family. As Matney subsequently stated to ABC News 2020's, "You see these horror stories on TV, and it's like a surreal feeling when it happens to you." The couple decided they needed a babysitter in October 2012. Matney immediately received a call after posting her request on Facebook. It wasn't a stranger either, which at the time felt like a blessing, but Matney came to the conclusion that she couldn't have been more mistaken. One of Matney's former high school classmates, Melissa Medema, was the one who answered. In response, she said, "I'm rather curious. Would it be okay if we had a meeting?" Matney expressed her distress to ABC News. She did what any good mother would do, despite her excitement and a lurking suspicion. Though Medema was an old acquaintance, Matney took some solace in that knowledge, but she wanted to be sure she had no criminal history. She thus spoke with one of her references and performed a background check. Everything seemed to be in order, but that did not preclude problems. Matney scheduled a meeting with Rayleigh since she had no reason to distrust Medema's motives, and the two of them clicked immediately. Matney made the decision to hire Medema after she conversed with and entertained the infant. That being said, unusual events soon began to occur. From the first day Medema began working as the family's nanny, Rayleigh's behavior altered. "Melissa just started screaming the day I walked through the door into her bedroom, the day she started working there," Matney told ABC News, "and I just thought, she's tired, she's getting sick." Still, Matney had no idea that something worse was taking place. Matney became extremely wary of more warning indicators. When Medema was taking care of Rayleigh, she insisted that she napped for 4 hours straight, but Matney understood it was not feasible at all. She told ABC News she would sleep for an hour or an hour and a half, but never for 4 hours. Then she had a terrifying thought. What if her baby's nanny was medicating her to put her to sleep? Matney was afraid that Medema was giving Rayleigh enough Benadryl to make her unconscious. But she brushed the emotion aside, believing herself to be merely a nervous new mother. But she couldn't help but observe that every time Medema showed around, her child would run and latch onto her or her father. So, in a panic, Matney asked for help from a higher authority. A physician informed Matney that Rayleigh's actions were due to separation anxiety, but that wasn't the only concern. Medema's habit of leaving the house immaculate after her babysitting shifts was something Matney knew from experience was very challenging while looking after Rayleigh. Thus, she made the decision to behave in a more assertive manner around 6 weeks later. She would stop at nothing to figure out what was going on this time. Matney got a nanny cam with a clock radio and set it up in the living room. "I put up this camera thinking maybe she's leaving her in her bouncer a little too long," she stated to ABC News. However, she discovered that the camera was facing the wall when she arrived home. Fortunately for this mother, some video had still been recorded. However, Matney was terrified when she began to watch the footage. Matney discovered that her nanny had left Rayleigh in her bouncer for 2 hours when she began to view the video. However, her heart fell as she witnessed Madima forcefully shaking and slapping her infant. Her maternal instincts took over right away. The nanny would be the one sobbing and yelling very soon. "A mother possesses a level of craziness that you are unaware of," Matney said to ABC News. She saw the video and phoned the police right away. After that, she brought Rayleigh to the ER. Thankfully, she was unharmed. It was now Madima's turn to pay for her actions. Madima showed up at their residence 2 days later, eager to start. The cops were there to take her into custody immediately. Matney was still overcome with remorse, though, for exposing her kid to such a horrific danger. "When it occurs to you, it feels like a dream," Matney said to ABC News 2020. Although she always knew it was possible, she had never considered the prospect that her family could suffer such a terrible fate until she watched the video. But would Madima be able to escape punishment? Or would she be found guilty in court? Since Rayleigh was not physically hurt, Madima entered a guilty plea to endangering the welfare of a minor. Because it was a Class D crime, the nanny was only sentenced to 3 years of probation and 90 days in jail. However, she declined to share her perspective. After locating Madima outside her Springdale, Arkansas apartment building, ABC News offered her a chance to clarify her behavior. Unfortunately, she would not say anything. Was she treated unfairly by the legal system? Madima, in Matney's opinion, did not receive what she was due. The nanny's access to Arkansas Act 346 made matters worse. Also referred to as the First Offender Act, it permits a first-time offender who entered a guilty plea to have their record erased when they fulfill their probationary period. Matney knew that this might endanger other families. After Madima's criminal record was wiped, Matney conducted research and discovered that she could essentially start working as a nanny again, concealing her past convictions for what she had done to Rayleigh from the next family that hired her. However, she was in no position to allow it to occur. "I'm working to prevent other people from experiencing the same fate as, well, Melissa and other individuals who have committed similar crimes and had their records erased. At the very least, for parents, I believe that their faces should be seen," Matney stated to ABC News. That's just what she did then. She collaborated with Senator John Woods and Representative Greg Leding of Arkansas in 2015 to establish a register for child abuse. To make sure that criminals don't get employment dealing with children, the Child Maltreatment Registry was put into place. Matney is hopeful that in order to protect everyone's children, every state in the union would embrace a similar stance. While some kids suffer long-term consequences from maltreatment, Rayleigh has developed into a wonderful young woman who isn't quite so small anymore. She's really doing really well, beaming with happiness that she will never have to go near Madima again and that her house is full of love. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.